Welcome back to America's Commercial Real Estate Show. And today we are talking industrial real estate, which has become more of an exciting sector all the time. It's like the new retail. This segment is brought to you by CommercialAgentSuccess.com. It's the ultimate cloud-based training for commercial agents. Check it out at CommercialAgentSuccess.com. My guest is Larry Callahan. He's CEO of Pattillo Industrial Real Estate. And Larry's joining us in Studio One. Thanks for joining us, Larry.
Glad to be here, Michael.
Well, I always enjoyed talking to you. You guys own and control and build a lot of industrial properties for a long time. And I know you get a chance to make big decisions with tenants and companies that are using space and watch the market in a big way. And one of the big things in the news lately has been these tariffs, and it's impacting the stock market. And I'm curious, as you're dealing with tenants' decisions and things today, is it impacting business in any way?
Well, I think it's a very noteworthy thing, and it's been a concern on the horizon because we've been, threatening tariffs for a long time, and now we've started imposing them. It was just last week we had the threat of another 10% tariff on another $300 billion worth of Chinese imports. So effectively, we'd be taxing every Chinese import at that point. So it's noteworthy, and it can disrupt people's planning process. Real estate decisions are all about confidence, and they're big decisions for companies. And uncertainty is something that slows down that decision-making process. And tariffs, the threats of tariffs and the actual imposition of tariffs does affect people. And it affects also with the retaliation that comes because people that are here, farmers in particular, are impacted when suddenly China responds by imposing tariffs on their business. And suddenly they're shut out of a market that had become very important to us. But in terms of how it impacts people here, this next round hadn't gone into effect. It could be threatened, and then they could decide, hey, we've made progress, we're not going to impose it. And that would be great. But the uncertainty about that starts affecting people, particularly people in retail, because this next round is affecting consumer goods like handhelds and laptops and clothing and things like that. And the imposition is supposed to be September 1st. And September 1st is right in the peak of the ordering season to build up the inventory for year-end for retail. So it affects people, and it affects them negatively. There's a lot of talk about who pays tariffs. Well, there's a lot of rounds of response and implications when tariffs are imposed. But the first round is you got an order placed, and it's coming your way, and you got to pay 10% more for that order. I mean, that hurts, and it hurts American companies or anybody based here, whether it's an American company or a foreign company that is importing parts or products that they're going to sell. So they now cost 10% more. So one of two things happens. Either they make a little less money because they paid that, or they increase the price to the consumer. So hard to come up with what's good about that.
Yeah.
So,
and as that impacts consumers buying retail goods, it has a ripple effect, right, on the retail tenants and then on the online orders and things that affect industrial, both in-store and online, affects industrial. And then also you have the stock market. How's it like what's going on with this? So are you also, as you're talking to major tenants making big decisions, real estate decisions, how much does the market impact them?
Well, they pay attention to what their stock is doing, and yesterday was not a good day. It was the biggest drop that we've had this year, and most of this year we've been talking about would the Federal Reserve lower interest rates, and last week the answer was yes, they lowered interest rates. It was a quarter point, and there was hardly any reaction in the market because it expected it. And then the next thing that happened was more tariffs get imposed. So we've forgotten about the Fed, and we focused on tariffs. And drops of that nature do affect people. The other way of looking at this, because I don't want to think about just the negatives related to imposition of tariffs, is it's possible that we go through this and we do come to a global trade agreement with China that addresses intellectual property, which is really one of the things that we're trying to address, is protection of intellectual property rights. We had similar battles with Japan back in the 1960s and 70s, and that came around, and ultimately they started dealing with intellectual property like the rest of the world was, and that was good for trade relations and good for the relationship between the countries. The same thing could happen with China, is that ultimately these kinds of pressures are put on, and we get a global resolution, and then everybody drops the tariffs back, and then we're in a better world. So that would be great if that happens.
And how much of the business world might look at this as short-term pain for long-term gain?
Well, it depends on how badly you're getting hurt
Yeah, right.
while you're going through this. We can focus on American companies and how American companies impact. Somebody like Boeing has suppliers all over the world, and they're building airplanes here, bringing them in from all over. So as tariffs are imposed, they're just paying more for those products. It's possible they look at that and then they say, okay, then if we get to a regime in the not too distant future where everybody drops tariffs back again, we're actually better off. So I don't know, it's hard, and the same is true for a foreign company that's sitting here. You can look at a BMW. BMW is their largest production factory in the world is in Greenville-Spartanburg, South Carolina, Greer to be precise. And they're importing parts from all over the world. So it affects that foreign company and their investment here, and it affects U.S.-based companies. So it just changes where things are, and there's not an immediate substitute for most products. If you're bringing in and you have set up the supply chain to get a personal computer built in China, and suddenly the extra tariff applies to that, you can't immediately go to Vietnam or New Zealand or someplace else and get it built. You've got to set up that whole supply chain and whole factory system. So these tariffs do have pain. Yeah. And then will it all resolve in the long run? I don't know. I know this. My personal belief is that I've been arguing that tariffs are a concern because they throw too much uncertainty in the air. Mm-hmm. So I hope that we get through this period relatively quickly. If we do, we could get to a better world.
And you mentioned interest rate reduction, the Fed lowering the rate a quarter point. Have you seen that impact your decisions to either build, refinance, sell, or any tenant decisions yet?
Well, I think it was a very noteworthy. The quarter point is not that much money if you really think about it. Yeah. There was a lot of talk that they'd like to see a half a point. But the thing that's so significant about it is it's a signal that it's an inflection point. It was the first time in 10 years the Federal Reserve has lowered interest rates. And it's a signal not just to our country, but around the world, that we may be going from a period where we were raising rates and tightening things and increasing the cost to people in real estate into a period of time where it actually starts going in the other direction. And there's a lot of reason to believe that we actually will have a period of time where we're going to be more accommodative. I think the rest of the world is in the same boat. Most of the rest of the world is in the same boat with us, where we've had a target expressed of 2% inflation. The Federal Reserve used to just say we want stable prices. But in recent years, they've gotten very specific about it. We want 2% inflation. Well, we haven't had it. We haven't been getting 2%. We've been getting like 1.5% since about the year 2000. That's been roughly what we've been dealing with. So if, in fact, you want to get 2%, that's going to mean that you actually have to loosen, because we haven't been getting it. So a little bit looser money, a little bit lower interest rates, a little bit more availability of money, that is going to have a tendency to help real estate. And it's going to help all the investments that are here. The concern that you have when you see the Federal Reserve raising interest rates 6 or 7 times, your concern is that it might keep going in that direction. Mm-hmm. You could end up with interest rates stop at 5, 6, 7%. Well, then if you've been operating your real estate company and doing leases, assuming that you're going to get a, say, 7% return, and then all of a sudden interest rates are up at 5, 6, 7%, that's not good for your business. But if you've been putting your cards on the table and getting lease commitments at a certain rate, and then the cost of money starts declining, that's actually quite good for you.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the world that we're more likely than not to be in.
And of course, you're getting good demand for your industrial properties, right? You said you're building more spec at Pattillo than you have ever done, right?
Spec and build to suit right now. We got the highest activity level that we've ever had.
Yeah.
And it's spread around. We are only building in what we consider outperform markets, places that we think are growing faster for specific reasons. So we are very actively building right now. We realize that we're 10 years into expansion cycle, but demand for industrial space is strong. The buildings that we're putting up are attracting good quality customers very quickly, and we feel very good about the market. The economics that we are seeing, we've had more pricing power as an owner of real estate than we've had in a long time.
Yeah.
So it helps that the markets that we're in have very high occupancy rates, and rates have been pushing up.
And one of the things that is in the news and everybody keeps hearing about is last mile delivery, right? And you're really deep in the industrial real estate world. What do you really see in there?
Well, for the last couple of years, especially older buildings, smaller buildings, lower roofs and things, everybody referred to them as last mile facilities. And the last mile equation of how to deliver goods that have been ordered on the internet has not truly been solved. But everybody's referring to these as last mile facilities. I think we are now starting to see the early stages of how people are going to handle the logistics of last mile. And it's all driven by the desire that people have to click on something and get it show up at your house 3 hours later or a day later, but certainly not a week later. Everybody is demanding faster and faster. And Amazon in particular is pushing to try to get as much as they can delivered within a day. Well, if you think about that as that's what delights the customer, and then you start working back to how do you do that? Well, you have to do things to make sure that the products that they're ordering, even before they order them, are already pre-staged close to where they are. Then you have to figure out how to quickly get it out the door once it is ordered. And the last mile delivery has not been thousands and thousands of small buildings with these products in it. It's been large distribution centers, and then they hand it to DHL or FedEx or UPS or the post office to make the last mile delivery. Well, now more and more, they're using other mechanisms like, the other people that are in this game, like Walmart, they have stores, and their stores are part of their delivery system. You can click on something and go to your local Walmart and pick it up. So that's part of a delivery system. You effectively become the last mile delivery. You go get it yourself. Right. So that's one thing that's happening. But Amazon is more and more pushing into the delivery business themselves. They are one of the larger customers of UPS, and I don't know about you, but those boxes show up on my door on a fairly regular basis. In many respects, Amazon, to try to control the process themselves, they are pushing big into their own delivery processes. You're seeing right now white vans show up that don't have any markings on them at all, and they're delivering for Amazon. And a lot of those are independent businesses that Amazon has pushed hard to get people to get started. They want droves of people to be out there helping them deliver. So it's a big shift that's going on, and it's affecting lots of things. It's affecting almost every type of real estate. As you're designing anything today, you got to think about where will the boxes be delivered, whether it's an office building or residential building, apartment buildings, whatever it is. where will the boxes be delivered and how will you keep them secure?
Yeah.
So,
and like you said, some of these retail properties are becoming last mile distribution, rather they're existing retail and distribution, or just completely turned into last mile delivery, right?
exactly. Well,
Yeah.
even shopping centers, there were more shopping centers. The United States had more shopping centers than any other country in the world per square foot per person. And we obviously dropped back down 10 years ago. So when it all started coming back, it was filled up with different types of things, more service-oriented, more restaurants and that kind of thing. But some of these things are being converted into last-mile delivery services. And sometimes they can use the existing building, sometimes they rip it down and start over again. But whole malls have been turned into retail delivery services. So it's a world that's changing, and the characteristic that's most noteworthy about that is that retail was always trying to go where the housetops are. Mm-hmm. Well, that's where Amazon needs to be to make that last delivery.
Yeah.
Amazon or anybody else.
Well, Larry, what would you leave our audience with related to the future of industrial real estate values, cap rates, and of future interest rate adjustments?
Well, I don't think we're going to see the race back to zero on interest rates, but I don't think we're in a tightening phase anymore. I think we have shifted gears toward a loosening phase, and I think that's actually good for industrial real estate and for every other type of real estate. I think it's good for the economy. I think there was a deflationary shock that ran through the U.S. and the international economy because of what the Federal Reserve did in tightening in the last year or so. They probably went too far, as evidenced by the fact that they just backed up. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that we're about to race down to zero like we did in 2008, but I think from an interest rate perspective, we are in a stable to declining interest rate environment for some period of time. And I think that's going to be accommodative, and it's going to be good for real estate. The future of industrial real estate, the present of industrial real estate is good. Yeah. If this was a state of the economy or state of the union, and we're talking about industrial, I'd say these are very good times. Fundamentally, it's good times. There's strong demand. The wind beneath our wings continues to be e-commerce. That shift is likely to continue even in a downturn. So it's a good time. And I think I would say the industry in general, from the bankers to the developers, should be commended for not overbuilding during this cycle. We've been going for 10 years, and you're not hearing people say, wow, the problem that's going to cause a recession is that developers have all overbuilt. They've been keeping up with demand, and demand and new construction have been very much in line through this whole cycle.
And that's good to see in industrial, and that's good to see in most every sector in most cities that we've seen around. So, Larry, good information as usual. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Well, glad to be here.
All right. And thank you for joining us around the country or around the world. We appreciate you being with us. Hey, we appreciate you sharing the show. Connect with us, if you will, on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook, wherever you watch the show. And thanks for commenting and sharing. Until next week, be sure that you always lead, learn, and laugh, and join us for America's Commercial Real Estate Show. America's Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Bull Realty. For customized asset and occupancy solutions, visit bullrealty.com. Commercial Agent Success Strategies. Incredible training for commercial agents. Visit commercialagentsuccess.com. Red IQ. Turning multifamily data into actionable intelligence. Visit rediq.com.